Hey everyone, Leanna here. You may notice improved sound quality on this video, and that's because, thanks to my Patreon supporters, I hit a milestone goal and was able to buy a new USB microphone. Yay, Patreon supporters! I know people, are down on Patreon for various reasons. Not going to argue those reasons, but it does help people like me who do ongoing YouTube content. It's nice to know that there's a certain base amount of income that comes in, so you know how much you can spend on a show in any given month. And YouTube traffic is so spotty and so unpredictable that Patreon is a really nice baseline, so I can use YouTube ads as a top up. It's nice. I know people don't like Patreon for various reasons, and you are justified in those reasons. However, for the people that do take the plunge and do see the good over the bad, I greatly appreciate it because it actually does help a lot. So that being said, and me kissing my patrons' asses, which is a good and noble Shakespearean tradition, I'll have you know, to kiss your patrons' asses in your work. We're gonna move on to the topic at hand today. It's this is a bit early. This Tata's Tuesday. It'll probably go up on Monday. Happy May the 4th. That's part of the reason I wanted to say May the 4th be with you on an ad, but on a video. It's one of those days. It's Monday. But I also wanted to talk about the Avengers Age of Ultron and a particular joke that was done in Avengers Age of Ultron, because it's there's too many caveats to my opinion on this one to do over Twitter. And I don't like picking on minutiae this way. And I know some people haven't seen the movie yet, so, spoiler warning. But I think this is something, because this is another thing Joss Whedon put in a movie that, slipped by a lot of people, because history is something that takes a backseat to math and science nowadays. But if you understand the particular joke I'm talking about, and the people reading the screens know the one I'm talking about, I am not going to discuss this in terms of whether it was offensive or not. I'm not going to discuss this in terms of whether or not jokes like this have a place in film, because of course everything has a place in film in certain places. What I'm going to discuss is whether a comment like this belongs in a PG-13 rated film, meaning we can't show actual sex, not graphically. And yet people are able to refer to acts of non-consensual sex and get by the censors. And this is what doesn't make sense to me about the way films are reviewed. And this is why I'm glad that we have industry regulation in the ESRB in video games, and not stupid government regulation like the MPAA is, because you get dumb decisions like this because people who don't understand a medium make rulings on a medium, and you get these decisions like, I don't know porn, but I'll know it when I see it, I'm talking, of course, to the Iron Man reference to the right of prima noctis, or in French known as droit de seigneur. Wow, my Canadian French really came out, didn't it? Dieu, droit de seigneur. We mush vowels in Canadian French. I know it drives Europeans crazy, but we also have above average pronunciation and speak gobbledygook because of the way we're talked. But enough about Canada. Canada's cool. You should come visit sometime, especially during things like Carabana, because the food's really good. But I digress. Okay, this comes in a line where they're all at a party, and the Avengers decide to partake in the absolutely non-homoerotic activity of trying to lift Thor's hammer. A bunch of dudes posturing and trying to lift another dude's hammer is not gay at all, okay? Not at all. And I'm going to pull the Seinfeld. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because that was a joke. And that was an attempt to show I'm not anti-joke and I'm not anti-dirty joke. Trust me. I just am not going to tell certain jokes when I know there's a kid around. Okay? I can't stress this enough. What I'm talking about here is the fact that kids are going to see Age of Ultron. They are. And some poor parent somewhere is going to have a little precocious youngster, and these poor bastards are going to have to explain to their kid or not explain to their kid what this funny term that Iron Man said means, right? Because Iron Man is the funny one in the Avengers. But the rite of prima noctis is, as you can see here, a tribal ruler who demanded that all virgins who desired to get married take an audience before him, with the ruler making it his whim to take the virginity of those who wanted to become married. So the joke that Iron Man was making is basically he wanted to basically take on the Thor mantle so he could make virgins sleep with him against their will, or more so whether they wanted to or not. And I think the joke was supposed to be why Iron Man's not worthy to wield Thor's hammer. But that goes without saying that he's not worthy. It's this weird, going back, this fake concept of this overarching toxic masculinity that men are either completely politically correct or they're potentially dangerous predators waiting to happen. And, Joss Whedon, the director of the film, identifies as a feminist. And this is the other reason why this comment struck me as odd, because part of the reason it's important to know things like that about a director is so when you go to see their movies, you can be reasonably certain you're not going to encounter stuff like this. And I think it was a disservice to the character of Iron Man, who is snarky and he's got some bad habits, but at no point before this was there ever any inkling that he had any fantasies of taking women against their will and virgins on top of it all. Like, the comment makes no sense, either in context or coming out of that character's mouth. It was, I think, another attempt to show how clever Joss Whedon is as a writer. Look, I know history. Yeah, anybody who saw Braveheart knows this term, dude. The other thing is it never happened, except, you may see in Doctor Doom, you can see down at the bottom there that I'll try to do this without making it go crazy. He invokes his right as the Lord to enjoy the company of any woman in the land. No, he's not looking to play cards with her, So for someone who, went after Jurassic World for 70s era sexism, based on the era of this art, Joss Whedon was engaging in some 70s or 80s era sexism himself there in a much more clear and cut and dried way. I mean, yes, stuff like this did make it into comics. It makes it into the comics now because comics have a much narrower reader base, and the majority of comics readers are adults. There are comics specifically for kids, but for the most part, comic book readers are adults. And so you can have this content. I mean, there's other controversies going on in comics. I personally think that comics have gone too far into this realm. I think they use non-consensual sexual situations a little too glibly for shock tactics and to make stories exciting without really thinking about what that does to a character and what that does to the audience reading it. Like I said, legitimate artistic device if handled with care. My complaint about the line in Age of Ultron is it seemed pretentious and smarmy. It didn't seem to be handled with care, and it doesn't have a place in a movie that is supposed to be fun. And surprisingly, I will defend the Black Widow scene that everybody's so upset about, not when she gets damseled, as some people said, when she gets locked up so Ultron can talk at her. That, it was stupid, but it was a minor moment. Other people have taken issue with the fact that, I won't say spoiler alert because this whole thing's a spoiler, I'm going to tag the video. When it's this big weepy moment with the Hulk, or is he yeah, he's Banner at that point, but that she was sterilized as part of her spy training. And some people have taken great issue with that moment. I'll defend that moment just because it is part of Natasha Romanoff's story in the comic books. Did it necessarily need to be brought up the way it was in that film? I think that the resolution to that out of nowhere quasi-romance frames in a different light, but I don't, that one for me may have towed the line, but I don't think that it, I don't think it crossed the line, just because, I think we need to make room in fiction for women who cannot, who cannot conceive children. But it's the strangest thing in common in any, potential relationship in a PG-13 film ever. But that, just so you guys get a sense of my tolerance, that one, I'd heard stuff about it going in, and I was, I guess, prepared for it to be worse than it was. I personally didn't feel that comment cross the line, and I don't, even though it might be upsetting to kids, I don't think it's a bad thing to expose kids to the realities of infertility, because there's stuff that, more and more women and couples are struggling with now for various reasons. So I think that was, sort of interesting and topical that a woman is still a woman without a uterus. The one less thing to worry about line was, probably intentionally glib. So I hope you can see that, because I was okay with that line. Me objecting to this Iron Man joke is, I'm not going out of my way to find stuff, as I was accused of on Twitter when I tweeted. I actually had to step out of the movie, go to the bathroom, take a breath, and come back in. Not because I was horribly traumatized, but because I found that I wasn't enjoying the film anymore, because I was still mad about this stupid joke. And it helped for me to just go to the bathroom and go, screw you, Joss Whedon, on Twitter, and go back in. It was like a little vent. And then I could, relatively enjoy the rest of the film, even though I found that, any moment where Hulk wasn't punching the Hulkbuster armor was a wasted moment. But that's, I just love the Hulk, and it's the only reason I see Avengers movies. Getting a little tired of Thor being universally hot too, as an aside. Getting real tired of that. I feel that that's, I feel that is condescending. The whole, women find Thor so hot. I'm personally more of a Captain America girl, just because he's such a nice guy. He's so good-hearted and so loyal and so driven by duty. I am personally, dig Captain America, which surprises no one more than me, because I think he's a jerk in the comics. He was a jerk in Civil War. He was, and I know it depends on the writer. It's not across the board, but Captain America has been kind of a jerk for a really long time in comics. And I think they really, what's the actor's name? Chris Evans? There's too many Chris's in superhero movies now, but I think Chris Evans does a great job with him. And I just think that, I like Cap. And so, no, not every woman would go to pieces and think a guy like Thor is dreamy. I think a guy like Thor in the real world would actually be pretty hard to take because, one of his character points that he had to get over is being an arrogant jerk, right? He's half an Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man's a complete arrogant jerk. But like I said, never before this have we gotten any indication that he has any interest in, non-consensual sex with virgins. Like, why does he have to fantasize about women who can't say no? He has plenty of women who can say yes. And it was probably intended that he didn't even mean it. But why is that example being set for kids? Why is that anywhere... Whoops, I hit the table. Why is that anywhere near an all-ages film, right? I think it's important, more important than imagery. Personally, I think, I don't care how many boobs you show, I don't care how objectified images are. I am more, that's not true that I don't care at all, but I'm talking about priorities here. But I think it's more important that young people are taught respect for each other, and that part of the great thing about, love and romance and physical attraction and all that stuff is that it's affirming because you're earning a person's affection and you're earning that intimacy. So in a superhero movie, a line like that said by somebody who is supposed to be a hero, even a flawed hero, he's a hero, Iron Man. And I would personally think that that's in dispute now. I'm not quite sure why Iron Man didn't get arrested at, the end of Age of Ultron based on what, his actions would be war crimes elsewhere, creating a dangerous artificial intelligence that then demolishes an entire European city. And don't you love the fact that, it's an Eastern European city, so it doesn't really matter. We don't have to worry about the after effects of them trashing New York, so we're going to set it in this place that it doesn't matter. Whoopsie. I dropped the controller and it went crazy. But that part bugged me too. Like, life is life. And people are people. And it doesn't really matter if it's, in Eastern Europe or in New York. That kind of mass death, injury, and terror matters. And I mean, Joss Whedon went on this whole thing about how he killed Quicksilver because he wants life to matter. Well, you wiped out an entire city. You had to evacuate. You displaced thousands of people. And you're saying life matters? Well, that's sort of... Because one guy who happens to be a superhero dies, you think that's what you needed to do to show life matters, not the, fear and suffering of thousands of people in an Eastern European country? That's what we call Eurocentric privilege, Joss Whedon. But I think he's just a hack, personally. And that's not nice to say. I know you shouldn't trash people. But at this point, he has so self-aggrandized playing the feminist card. And then his body of work has not lived up to his self-definition of being some sort of authority on feminist issues. That I think at this point, he has earned the title of hack in that regard. This is just another example that he's like a toddler with a nuclear bomb when he gets on a major franchise. You never know when it's gonna blow, right? So this is why I made this video. I wanted people to sort of understand the issue. And I'm not telling anybody how to think on this. I felt it was inappropriate. I don't need anybody else to feel like it was okay. I just empathize with some parents because I was a precocious kid. If there was a term that got a reaction out of adults in the audience when I was a kid, it was, "Mommy, what did that mean?" And my poor mother had to explain some pretty adult stuff. So I'm putting myself in the place of the parents that trusted the rating and put, put this in the film. And I'm not sure how I would honestly explain this to a kid. Like, how do you explain Iron Man expressing the desire to do something worthy of Doctor Doom?